My name is Barbara. I'm 35 years old, and I'm standing in the marble lobby of the most exclusive resort in Aspen on Christmas Eve, watching my family's faces turn white as the concierge rushes toward me like I'm royalty. 3 weeks ago, these same people told me I wasn't welcome on their luxury Christmas trip because I'd embarrass them in front of the wealthy guests. My stepmother Patricia just dropped her champagne glass when the head of staff announced loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Welcome back, Miss Barbara. The owner is expecting you in the penthouse suite." The silence that followed was the most beautiful Christmas gift I'd ever received. Before I continue this incredible story of betrayal, secrets, and sweet justice, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Are you spending the holidays with family, or are you like I was, feeling excluded from those who should love you most? Please hit that like button if you've ever felt like the black sheep of your family. And don't forget to subscribe because this story of how I went from the uninvited relative to owning the very resort they tried to ban me from will show you that sometimes rejection is just redirection to something far better. Trust me, what happens next will leave you as speechless as my family was that Christmas Eve. Let me take you back to understand how a small-town teacher like me ended up owning one of the most exclusive resorts in Colorado. I've lived my entire adult life in a modest apartment in Denver, teaching 4th grade at a public school where half my paycheck goes to buying supplies for kids whose families can't afford them. It's not glamorous work, but I love it, even though my family has always seen it as proof that I'm the failure of the family. My father William remarried when I was 15, bringing Patricia and her 2 children into our lives. Patricia came from money, or at least she acted like it, and she made sure her children Crystal and Derek never forgot they were destined for greatness. Crystal, now 32, works in fashion, which really means she spends her trust fund on clothes and calls it market research. Derek, 30, claims to be an entrepreneur, but his business cards change titles more often than most people change their oil. From the moment Patricia entered our lives, I became the inconvenient reminder of my father's past. While Crystal got a new BMW for her 16th birthday, I got a lecture about being grateful for the bus pass. When Derek wanted to study abroad in France, they found the money, but when I got accepted to Columbia Teachers College, suddenly we needed to be practical about debt. I learned early that in the new family hierarchy, I rank somewhere below the designer dogs Patricia bought and definitely below the image she wanted to project to her country club friends. But there was one person who saw through all of it, and that was my grandmother Rose. Grandma Rose was my mother's mother, and after Mom died when I was 6, she became my refuge. Every summer, I'd spend 2 months with her in what everyone assumed was her modest cottage in the mountains. The family pitied her, actually. Patricia would send care packages of canned goods, making comments about how sad it was that some people never amounted to anything in life. What none of them knew, what even I didn't know until 6 months ago, was that Grandma Rose was playing a role worthy of an Oscar. That modest cottage? It was the guest house on a 200-acre estate. The threadbare clothes she wore to family gatherings? She donated more to charity each year than my father made in a decade. Rose Montgomery, my sweet grandmother who taught me to bake cookies and grow tomatoes, was actually Rose Montgomery Astor, heir to one of the largest hospitality empires in the western United States. She died 6 months ago, and I was the only family member who took time off work to be with her in those final weeks. Patricia said she was too busy with her charity gala, Crystal was at Fashion Week, Derek was closing a deal that would definitely make him millions this time, and my father, well, he sent flowers and a card. As I held her hand in those last days, she told me the truth about everything. The empire she'd built after my grandfather died, the hotels and resorts across Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana, the fortune she'd carefully hidden from a family she'd watched become corrupted by much smaller amounts of money. "I've watched them for 20 years, Barbara," she told me, her voice still strong despite her frail body. "I've seen how they treat you, how they measure worth in dollars and status. I've seen Patricia throw parties that cost more than your annual salary while refusing to help with your student loans. I've given them so many chances to show kindness, to include you, to be a real family. But money doesn't change people, darling, it reveals them. She passed away holding my hand, and the next day, her lawyer called me for a private reading of the will. That's when I learned I'd inherited everything, the entire Montgomery Astor portfolio worth over $300 million. But there were conditions. I had to spend 6 months learning the business, working with her trusted managers, understanding every aspect of the empire. And most importantly, I had to keep it secret until Christmas Eve. Your grandmother was very specific, the lawyer explained. She wanted you to see one more time who your family really is when they don't know what you have. She wanted you to be certain that whatever relationship you choose to have with them going forward is based on truth, not wealth. The crown jewel of her empire was the Aurora Resort in Aspen, a place so exclusive that there was a 2-year waiting list just to book a regular room. The Christmas week alone generated more revenue than most hotels saw in a year. It was where celebrities and tech billionaires spent the holidays, where a basic suite cost $5,000 a night and the penthouse, well, that was by invitation only. For 6 months, I've been living a double life. Teaching during the week, flying to various properties on weekends, learning from the best in the hospitality industry. I've kept my same apartment, my same 10-year-old Honda Civic, my same simple life. But I've also been preparing for this moment, for the Christmas revelation that Grandma Rose had orchestrated from beyond the grave. She knew our family's annual Christmas trip planning would happen in early December, and she knew exactly how they would treat me. What she'd given me wasn't just wealth, it was the chance to finally see behind every mask. 3 weeks before Christmas, I received the annual summons to Patricia's mansion for the family Christmas trip planning meeting. These meetings were less about planning and more about Patricia showing off whatever new renovations she'd done to her house or Crystal debuting her latest designer purchases. I arrived in my sensible teacher clothes, parking my old Honda between Derek's new Tesla and Crystal's Range Rover. The foyer was decorated with a massive gold and white Christmas tree that probably cost more than I made in 3 months. Patricia air-kissed me at the door, her eyes already scanning my outfit with that familiar disapproval. "Barbara, dear, couldn't you have worn something a little more presentable?" You know how the neighbors talk. The family was gathered in the living room that looked like it had been ripped from the pages of Architectural Digest. Crystal was draped across the white leather sofa, scrolling through her phone, while Derek practiced his putting on the indoor green Patricia had installed last month. My father sat in his usual chair, already nursing a scotch, his eyes avoiding mine as they had for the past 20 years. "Now that everyone's here," Patricia announced, settling into her throne-like chair, "let's discuss this year's Christmas spectacular. Crystal has outdone herself with the booking." Crystal finally looked up from her phone, a smug smile spreading across her Botox-enhanced lips. "I managed to secure a full wing at the Aurora Resort in Aspen. Do you have any idea how impossible that is? I had to call in favors from 3 different influencers who vacation there." "The Aurora?" Derek whistled, missing his putt. "That's got to be 50 grand for the week minimum." 53,000, actually, Crystal preened. "But it's worth it for the experience. They have a private chef, butler service, ski valets, and access to the members-only club where actual billionaires spend their evenings. This is the kind of place where connections are made, where deals happen." Patricia clasped her hands together like she was praying to the patron saint of social climbing. "It's perfect. We'll finally be spending Christmas among our true peers. The Worthingtons will be there, and the Ashfords. This could open so many doors for Derek's new venture." They continued planning for 20 minutes, discussing spa appointments and dinner reservations, which designer ski outfits to pack, and how many Instagram stories they could post without seeming gauche. I sat quietly, knowing what was coming, my grandmother's voice echoing in my head, "Watch them, darling. See who they really are." Finally, Patricia turned to me with that fake sympathetic smile she'd perfected over the years. "Barbara, dear, about the trip. I'm afraid we won't be able to include you this year." The room went silent except for the crackling of the fireplace. Even Derek stopped putting to watch the show. "You understand, don't you?" Patricia continued, her voice dripping with false concern. The Aurora has certain standards, and well, on a teacher's salary, you couldn't even afford the spa tips. It would be uncomfortable for everyone, especially you. Crystal laughed, not even trying to hide her delight. Mom's right. Can you imagine? You'd be wearing your Target clothes while everyone else is in Prada. And what would you even talk about with those people? Your little classroom stories? Please. Maybe you can visit the gift shop, Derek added with a smirk. Take a selfie in the lobby and pretend you stayed there. No one has to know. I looked at my father, waiting for him to say something, anything. He swirled his scotch and studied the ice cubes like they held the secrets of the universe. It's for the best, he finally mumbled. You'd be out of your element, Barbara. These aren't your kind of people. Patricia nodded approvingly at his support. Exactly. We're thinking of you, really. Can you imagine the embarrassment? The other guests would know immediately that you don't belong. Your clothes, your manners, the way you speak. It's also wonderfully middle class, perfect for teaching children, but this is a different world entirely. Besides, Crystal added, scrolling through photos on her phone, the Aurora doesn't even allow teachers. I mean, not as guests. Only as staff. Could you imagine the confusion if you showed up? They'd probably try to hand you an apron. The cruelty was so casual, so practiced, that it was almost artistic. 20 years of small cuts had led to this moment, this final exclusion from the family unit. They weren't even trying to soften the blow anymore. I understand completely, I said, keeping my voice steady and calm. You're absolutely right. The Aurora Resort is definitely out of my league. Patricia looked pleased, but slightly suspicious at my easy acceptance. She'd expected tears or arguments, some dramatic scene she could later recount to her friends as evidence of my emotional instability. You're taking this very well, she said, studying me carefully. Why wouldn't I? I shrugged. You've made it clear for years that I'm not really part of this family's social class. This is just the natural progression of things. I hope you all have a wonderful time. Derek laughed, returning to his putting. See? She gets it. Finally accepting reality. Maybe there's hope for you yet, Barb. Crystal was already moving on, showing Patricia photos of the resort. Look at the penthouse suite. That's where the owner stays when they're in residence. Can you imagine having that kind of money? I heard the owner is some reclusive billionaire who inherited everything. Must be nice. If only they knew they were looking at photos of my suite, my resort, my inheritance. But I kept my face neutral, playing the role of the rejected daughter one last time. Patricia stood, clearly ready to dismiss me now that the uncomfortable business was done. Well, that's settled then. We'll send you lots of photos so you can see how the other half lives. Maybe it will inspire you to aim higher in life, though at 35, it might be too late for any real ambition. As I gathered my things to leave, she delivered one final blow. Oh, and Barbara? We're doing family photos at the resort for our Christmas card next year. We'll make sure to take some casual ones too that we can share with you. It's important to have those memories, even if you can't be in them. I walked out of that house knowing it would be the last time I ever entered it as the family disappointment. In 3 weeks, everything would change. They thought they were excluding me from their grand adventure, but really, they were walking into a carefully orchestrated revelation 20 years in the making. Driving away in my old Honda, I allowed myself one small smile. Grandma Rose had been right about everything. Money doesn't change people, but it does reveal them. And in 3 weeks, at the Aurora Resort, everyone would finally see the truth. Christmas Eve morning arrived with fresh snow falling on Aspen, turning the already picturesque resort town into something from a snow globe. I'd been monitoring my family's social media posts for 2 days as they documented every moment of their exclusive vacation. Crystal had posted 17 photos of herself in various designer ski outfits. Derek had shared 3 videos of champagne toasts with captions about living my best life, and Patricia had uploaded a virtual tour of their suite with commentary about how some people are just born for this lifestyle. I arrived at the Aurora Resort in a black limousine, having traded my usual Honda for the ride my executive assistant insisted was appropriate for the owner's arrival. As we pulled up to the private entrance reserved for VIP guests, I could see the main lobby through the massive windows where my family was likely having their morning coffee, completely unaware that their world was about to shift on its axis. The head of security, Marcus Webb, met me at the door with a warm smile. "Welcome back, Ms. Rose. We've been expecting you." I decided to use my grandmother's name professionally, both to honor her and to maintain anonymity until the right moment. The staff had been briefed on the situation, and while they remained perfectly professional, I could see the gleam of anticipation in their eyes. In the hospitality industry, stories of entitled guests getting their comeuppance were whispered about like folklore, and this one would be legendary. The private elevator whisked me up to the penthouse suite, and when the doors opened, I had to catch my breath despite having seen it before. The suite sprawled across 5,000 square feet, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of the snow-covered Rockies. Every detail screamed understated luxury, from the original Rothko painting above the fireplace to the custom furniture that cost more than most people's houses. My assistant, James, was waiting with a tablet full of updates. "Your family has been quite active during their stay," he said diplomatically, though his pressed lips suggested there was more to the story. "Show me everything," I said, settling into the plush sofa that faced the mountains. The reports were worse than I'd expected. Crystal had complained about her suite within minutes of arrival, demanding an upgrade because she could hear the elevator. When told all suites were booked, she'd thrown a tantrum in the lobby, claiming she was being discriminated against because she was too pretty and the staff was jealous. She'd also been caught trying to sneak into the members-only club by claiming she was a famous influencer. Derek had been even worse. He'd hit on 3 female staff members, including one who was barely 18, and had to be warned by security about appropriate behavior. He'd also been telling anyone who would listen that he was about to close a deal that would make him richer than the resort's owner, whoever that was. His bar tab alone was approaching 5 figures, all charged to the room. But Patricia had outdone them both. She'd attempted to redecorate her suite, actually moving furniture, and demanding the staff rehang artwork to her specifications. When the concierge politely explained that modifications weren't allowed, she'd threatened to have everyone fired once she spoke to her very close friend, who knew the owner. She'd also been caught trying to steal amenities from other rooms, claiming that at these prices, everything should be included. "The staff has been remarkably patient," James noted, "though I believe they're looking forward to this evening's reveal." I spent the next 2 hours reviewing the final details for the Christmas Eve gala. It was the resort's most exclusive event of the year, with tickets at $25,000 per couple, and all proceeds went to local children's charities. My family had managed to secure tickets only because I'd instructed the staff to ensure they could attend. Everything had to happen in front of the most influential audience possible. As I prepared for the evening, choosing a stunning burgundy gown from the selection my stylist had prepared, I thought about all the Christmas Eves I'd spent alone or with just Grandma Rose while my family celebrated without me. All the times they'd posted photos from their gatherings with captions about "family is everything" while I sat in my apartment grading papers. All the microaggressions and casual cruelty that had defined my relationship with them for 2 decades. Looking in the mirror, I hardly recognized myself. The designer gown, the professional hair and makeup, the Harry Winston diamonds on loan for the evening, they transformed me into someone who belonged in this world. But underneath it all, I was still Barbara the teacher, still the woman who'd held her grandmother's hand as she passed, still the daughter who'd never been quite good enough. The only difference was now I had the power to rewrite the story. James knocked softly. "Ms. Rose, the photographer from the Times is here for your interview." That was another part of the plan. The New York Times was doing a feature on young female entrepreneurs in the hospitality industry, and they jumped at the chance to profile the mysterious new owner of the Aurora Resort. The article wouldn't run until after Christmas, but having a Times photographer document the evening would ensure everything was captured for posterity. As the sun began to set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I made my final preparations. Down below, guests were beginning to arrive for the gala, the circular driveway filled with Bentleys and Ferraris, and the occasional Lamborghini. Somewhere among them, my family was preparing for what they thought would be the social highlight of their year. "Are you ready for this?" James asked as we prepared to descend. I thought about Grandma Rose, about her final words to me: "Promise me you'll show them who you really are, but more importantly, show them who they really are." I thought about every Christmas I'd been excluded, every family photo I wasn't in, every celebration I'd watched from the outside. "I've been ready for 20 years, I said, stepping into the elevator that would take me down to the ballroom and the family reunion none of them saw coming. The elevator descended silently, each floor bringing me closer to the moment of truth. Through the glass walls, I could see the ballroom coming alive with guests in their finest attire, champagne flowing like water, and my family holding court at their VIP table, completely unaware that their carefully constructed world was about to crumble like a house of cards in a hurricane. The ballroom of the Aurora Resort had been transformed into a winter wonderland that would make the North Pole jealous. $500,000 worth of decorations created a magical atmosphere with crystal chandeliers draped in white orchids, trees made entirely of silver and gold, and snow machines creating the illusion of a gentle indoor snowfall. The cream of Aspen society mingled beneath it all, their jewelry catching the light like scattered stars. I paused at the top of the grand staircase, taking in the scene below. The Times photographer was already in position, discreetly capturing the evening's moments. Waiters glided between guests with champagne and caviar, while a string quartet played classical renditions of Christmas carols. And there, at the table with the best view of both the mountains and the stage, sat my family. Patricia held court like a queen, her silver gown probably costing more than she'd ever spent on my education. She was gesturing dramatically, no doubt regaling the unfortunate couples at nearby tables with stories of her importance. Crystal posed for every phone camera she could find, her gold dress designed more for Instagram than warmth. Derek had cornered some poor businessman, his loud voice carrying across the room as he pitched whatever imaginary venture he was peddling this week. And my father sat quietly, as he always did, present in body but checked out in every way that mattered. I began my descent, and the first person to notice was elderly Mrs. Worthington, one of the resort's original investors and a close friend of my grandmother's. Her eyes widened in recognition, and she immediately whispered to her husband. The ripple effect was instantaneous. Heads turned, conversations paused, and a subtle shift in the room's energy occurred as those in the know realized who had just arrived. The general manager, Robert Fitzgerald, approached me at the bottom of the stairs. He was a distinguished man in his 60s who'd worked for my grandmother for 30 years. In a gesture that was both respectful and theatrical, he took my hand and kissed it formally. "Ms. Rose," he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly quieter ballroom. "We are honored by your presence this evening. Your suite has been prepared exactly as requested." That's when Crystal noticed me. I saw her lean toward Derek and laugh, her voice carrying clearly in the hushed space. "Oh my God, look. Barbara somehow snuck in. Security must be slipping. Should we tell someone?" Derek glanced over and snorted. $10 says she's here to apply for a job. "Hey, Barbara. The kitchen's that way." Their laughter died as Robert and I approached their table, flanked by the resort's senior staff. Patricia's expression cycled through confusion, annoyance, and the beginning of alarm as she noticed the deference being shown to me. "Good evening," I said pleasantly, my voice carrying the calm authority I'd learned over the past 6 months. "I hope you're enjoying your stay at my resort." Patricia's champagne glass halted halfway to her lips. What? Is this some kind of joke?" Crystal laughed, but it was sharp and nervous. "Seriously, Barbara? First you crashed the party, and now you're pretending to own the place? Have you completely lost it? Someone call security." As if on cue, the head of security appeared, but he positioned himself behind me, not them. "Ms. Rose, is everything to your satisfaction?" "You're what?" Derek stood, his face reddening. "Okay, this has gone far enough." "I don't know what kind of con you're running, Barbara, but—" Robert cleared his throat. "Mr. Derek, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. Allow me to formally introduce MS. Barbara Rose, owner and proprietor of the Aurora Resort and the entire Montgomery Astor Hospitality Group. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the champagne bubbles popping in their glasses. Patricia's face had gone white beneath her expertly applied makeup. Crystal's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Derek sank back into his chair as if his legs had given out. And my father finally looked directly at me for the first time in years, his eyes wide with shock. "That's impossible," Patricia whispered. "You're a teacher. You drive a Honda. You live in that tiny apartment." "All true," I agreed, taking the empty chair at their table without invitation. "I am a teacher. I do drive a Honda, though I keep the Bentley here for special occasions. And I love my apartment, though I suppose I'll have to decide whether to keep it or move into one of the 17 homes I inherited from Grandma Rose." Grandma Rose. Crystal's voice cracked. "That old woman in the rundown cottage?" "The cottage that was actually the guest house on her 200-acre estate," I corrected. "The same Grandma Rose you all ignored for 20 years, who you never invited to Christmas, who Patricia sent canned goods to because she thought she was poor. Rose Montgomery Astor, founder of this empire, who died 6 months ago and left everything to the only family member who bothered to hold her hand at the end." The tables around us had given up any pretense of not listening. Phones were discreetly recording, and I could see tomorrow's gossip headlines writing themselves. Patricia's carefully cultivated image was crumbling in real time. "No," Patricia said, her voice rising. "No, this is some mistake. The inheritance it should have. We're family." She was William's mother-in-law. "That money belongs to—" "To whom, exactly?" I asked calmly. "To the people who mocked her at every family gathering? Who called her cottage embarrassing? Who didn't even attend her funeral because Crystal had Fashion Week and Derek had a big deal closing?" Derek found his voice, and predictably, it was angry. "You manipulated her. You must have. There's no way she leaves everything to you unless you poisoned her mind against us." "Poisoned her mind?" I laughed, and it wasn't a kind sound. "She had front-row seats to your behavior for 2 decades. She saw how you treated me, how you excluded me, how you measured my worth in dollars I didn't have. She even tested you. Did you know that? 5 years ago, she had her lawyer approach Dad about a potential inheritance. Wanted to see if knowing there was money would change how you treated me." My father's face went even paler, and I knew he remembered. The sudden invitation to Sunday dinners that had lasted exactly 3 weeks before they realized the lawyer had been mistaken. "But the best part," I continued, standing as the orchestra prepared for the evening's formal program, "is that she documented everything. Every slight, every exclusion, every cruel comment. She has videos, Patricia, of you explaining why I shouldn't be included in family photos because my clothes would ruin the aesthetic. She has recordings, Crystal, of you telling your friends that your stepsister is an embarrassment. And Derek, she has security footage from various hotels of behavior that would make your business partners run screaming." The resort's social media manager appeared at my elbow. "Ms. Rose, would you like to say a few words to open the gala?" I smiled at my family's stricken faces. "Of course. If you'll excuse me, I need to welcome my guests. Do enjoy your evening. I believe you have the table with the best view, though I should mention checkout is at 10 tomorrow morning. Your bill has been tabulated, including Derek's impressive bar tab and the damages to your suite. I'm sure you'll find everything in order." As I walked toward the stage, I heard Patricia's desperate voice behind me. "Barbara, wait. We're family. We should talk about this." I paused but didn't turn. "Funny how I became family the moment you learned I had money. We'll talk tomorrow, Patricia. Right now, I have 500 guests to welcome and $3 million to raise for children's charities. You know, the kind of thing families do together at Christmas. At least, real families." The spotlight found me as I took the stage, and the applause was thunderous. In the VIP table's direction, I could see Patricia frantically typing on her phone, probably Googling my grandmother's name and discovering the truth she'd been too arrogant to see for 20 years. Crystal was having what appeared to be a full breakdown, mascara running as she realized her social media empire had just been built on lies. Derek was downing whiskey like water, and my father sat frozen, staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. "Good evening, everyone," I said into the microphone, my voice steady and clear. "Welcome to the Aurora Resort's annual Christmas Eve Gala. I'm Barbara Rose, and I'm honored to be your host this evening. This event has special meaning for me, as it was my grandmother's favorite night of the year. She believed in the power of generosity, the importance of family, both born and chosen, and the magic that happens when we open our hearts to those in need. Tonight, we continue her legacy." The applause this time was warm and genuine, and I caught sight of several people who'd known my grandmother wiping away tears. As I continued my welcome speech, outlining the evening's charity initiatives and thanking the donors, I couldn't help but notice my family trying to leave discreetly. They were stopped at the door by security, who politely but firmly informed them that the owner had requested they remain until she could speak with them privately. The next 3 hours were a blur of congratulations, conversations with fellow resort owners, and charitable donations that exceeded all expectations. Throughout it all, I was aware of my family's presence like a dark cloud in the corner of the ballroom. Patricia had stopped trying to maintain appearances, her face set in a mask of fury. Crystal had given up on damage control, drinking heavily and shooting venomous looks my way. Derek had progressed from anger to desperate calculation, probably trying to figure out how to salvage something from this disaster. As the evening wound down and guests began departing with warm wishes and promises to visit my other properties, I finally approached my family's table. They looked like survivors of a shipwreck, clinging to the debris of their former lives. "Shall we continue this conversation somewhere more private?" I suggested. "I believe we have some family business to discuss." The private conference room overlooked the moonlit mountains, its elegant furnishings a stark contrast to the ugly scene about to unfold. My family filed in like prisoners approaching the gallows, their earlier bravado completely evaporated. I'd asked James to join us as a witness, and he stood discreetly in the corner with a tablet, ready to document everything. Patricia didn't even wait for everyone to sit before launching her attack, though her tone had shifted from fury to calculated manipulation. "Barbara, darling, I think we've all been in shock. This is such wonderful news about your inheritance. We're family, and families support each other through surprises like this. The transformation was so sudden it would have been comical if it weren't so predictable. 20 years of calling me an embarrassment, and now I was darling. Are we family?" I asked, settling into the chair at the head of the table. "Because 3 weeks ago, you told me I wasn't welcome on your family trip. What's changed, Patricia?" Crystal, mascara still smudged beneath her eyes, tried her own approach. "Barbara, you have to understand, we didn't mean those things the way they sounded. It was just, we were trying to protect you. The pressure of wealth, it's not easy. We didn't want you to feel overwhelmed." "Protect me?" I laughed. "Like when you posted on Instagram that your stepsister was proof that not everyone in the family got the success gene. Or when you told your followers that you had to crop me out of photos because I didn't fit your aesthetic." Derek slammed his hand on the table, reverting to his default mode of aggression when charm failed. Enough games. Grandma Rose was clearly not in her right mind when she made that will. No rational person leaves everything to one grandchild while ignoring the rest of the family. We'll contest it. Mental incapacity, undue influence, take your pick. "Please do," I said calmly. "I'm sure the court will be fascinated by the video depositions Grandma made with her legal team." She was quite thorough in explaining her reasoning. She even had a neurological exam 3 months before she died, specifically to prevent any challenges to her mental capacity. Score was perfect, by the way. My father finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Barbara, I'm your father." Doesn't that mean anything? The question hung in the air between us, weighted with 2 decades of absence. I studied him, this man who'd chosen his new family over his daughter at every turn, who'd sat silent through every slight and exclusion. "You haven't been my father since I was 15, I said quietly. A father would have defended his daughter. A father would have ensured she was included. A father wouldn't have let his wife and stepchildren treat her like a servant in her own family. You made your choice every single day for 20 years, William. You chose them. But blood," he started weakly. "Blood? I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo. This is Christmas 5 years ago. Your family photo from the ski lodge in Vail. Where was your blood then? Oh right, I wasn't invited because Patricia said my presence would confuse the photographer's aesthetic. Patricia tried another tactic, tears appearing on cue. Barbara, we made mistakes. I see that now. But can you find it in your heart to forgive? It's Christmas. A time for family to come together. Interesting how forgiveness becomes important when $300 million is involved, I observed. Tell me, Patricia, what exactly are you forgiving me for? Being too poor? Too embarrassing? Too much of a reminder that William had a life before you? Crystal's mask finally slipped completely. You can't do this. Do you know who we are? I have 2 million followers. I'll destroy you online. I'll tell everyone how you stole our inheritance, how you manipulated a sick old woman. Please do, I encouraged. I'm sure your followers will be fascinated to learn that the luxury lifestyle you've been flaunting was built on credit cards and loans you can't afford. That the designer goods were rented for photos. That the wealthy heiress persona you've cultivated is as fake as your eyelashes. My forensic accountants have been quite thorough in investigating the family finances. The color drained from Crystal's face as she realized I knew everything. Derek's failed businesses propped up by loans he'd never repay. Patricia's house mortgaged 3 times to maintain appearances. The entire house of cards they'd built while looking down on me for being financially responsible. Here's what's going to happen, I said, standing to signal the meeting was ending. You're going to check out tomorrow morning. You're going to pay your bill in full, including the damages and Derek's bar tab. You're going to leave my resort and never return. And you're going to stop pretending we're family. You can't just cut us off, Derek snarled. We have rights. Grandma Rose's money should be shared with all her grandchildren. Rights? I pulled out a folder James had prepared. Like the right to attend her funeral? The right to visit her when she was sick? The right to include her in your family gatherings? You had 20 years of rights, Derek, and you threw them away for the price of your indifference. I spread photos across the table. Grandma Rose at holidays, alone. Birthday cards returned unopened. Invitations declined. The visual evidence of 2 decades of neglect. She documented everything, I continued. Every time she reached out and was rebuffed. Every excuse you made to avoid seeing her. Every cruel comment you made about her poverty. She kept it all, not out of spite, but out of sadness. She wanted so badly to be wrong about you. Patricia made one last desperate play. What if we contest the will? It could take years. Legal fees will eat up the estate. Is that what Rose would have wanted? Try it, I said simply. I have her legal team on retainer, and they're very eager to defend her final wishes. But know this, the moment you file, I release everything. Every video, every recording, every document showing exactly who you are. Your society friends will abandon you. Crystal's followers will turn on her. Derek's potential investors will run. And William, everyone will know what kind of father you really are. The silence was heavy with defeat. They'd played every card and lost every hand. Patricia's tears had dried up, replaced by a calculating coldness. Crystal stared at her phone as if it held answers. Derek's fists clenched and unclenched with impotent rage. And my father seemed to age 10 years in 10 minutes. You have 1 hour to return to your rooms, I said, moving toward the door. Security will escort you. Oh, and Patricia? That diamond necklace you're wearing? It's from the resort's jewelry boutique. You charged it to the room this afternoon. I'll need that back before you leave, or I'll add theft to the bill. Patricia's hand flew to her throat, her face flushing with humiliation. I was going to pay for it. With what? I asked. The credit cards that are all maxed out? The checking account with insufficient funds? Or were you planning to guilt your husband into taking another loan against the house that's already underwater? The truth was brutal in its simplicity. They'd lived beyond their means for so long, sustained by credit and appearances, that they'd forgotten what real wealth looked like. And now, faced with someone who actually had what they'd pretended to possess, their facade crumbled completely. One more thing, I said as James opened the door. Grandma Rose did leave you each something in her will. A trust fund that will pay for financial counseling and therapy. She thought you might need both. The lawyers will be in touch with the details. I left them sitting in that elegant room, surrounded by the luxury they'd craved but couldn't afford, processing the reality that their exclusion of me had cost them everything they'd wanted. The woman they deemed unworthy of their Christmas celebration now owned the very ground they stood on, and there was nothing they could do about it. As I walked back to my penthouse, I thought about Grandma Rose and her infinite wisdom. She hadn't just given me wealth, she'd given me the power to finally see my worth wasn't determined by their acceptance. And that was the greatest gift of all. Christmas morning dawned crystal clear over Aspen, the mountains gleaming like diamonds under the winter sun. I woke in the penthouse suite to 47 missed calls from Patricia, 18 from Crystal, and a barrage of text messages that ranged from threats to pleas to incoherent ranting. My family, it seemed, had not taken the night to accept their new reality gracefully. James knocked and entered with coffee and a tablet showing the security feeds. "They've barricaded themselves in their suites," he reported with professional neutrality that didn't quite hide his amusement. "They're refusing to check out, claiming squatters' rights of all things." I sipped my coffee while watching Patricia on the monitor, pacing her suite while barking into her phone. She was calling every lawyer in her contacts, trying to find someone who would take their case on Christmas Day. Crystal had gone live on Instagram, mascara streaking down her face as she told her followers about the grave injustice being done to her family. The comments section was not being kind. Derek was systematically destroying his room, apparently thinking property damage would somehow strengthen his position. "Cut their room service," I instructed. "Disable their room keys for everything except the bathroom and bedroom. No amenities, no spa access, no restaurant privileges. If they want to stay, they can sit in empty rooms." By 10 a.m., their checkout time, things had escalated. Patricia had called the police, claiming she was being held hostage. The officers who arrived were the same ones who regularly worked security for our charity events, and after James showed them the situation, they informed Patricia that refusing to leave private property was trespassing, not imprisonment. Crystal's Instagram breakdown had backfired spectacularly. Someone in the comments had found old posts where she'd mocked poor people, and the hashtag Crystal the Grifter was trending. Her follower count was dropping in real time as people realized her entire lifestyle had been a carefully constructed lie. Even better, several brands she'd claimed to partner with issued statements denying any association with her. Derek had moved from property damage to attempted theft. Security caught him trying to stuff resort property into his suitcase, everything from bathrobes to the flat-screen TV. When confronted, he claimed it was compensation for emotional distress, which might have been more convincing if he hadn't been caught on camera doing it. By noon, I'd had enough. I arrived at their floor with security and the police officers, who were now officially there to escort trespassers off the property. The doors to their suites were opened with master keys, revealing the chaos inside. Patricia stood in the center of her destroyed suite, still in yesterday's gown, her carefully styled hair now resembling a bird's nest. "You can't do this," she screamed. "We have rights. We're family. Your father is my husband." "My father is a stranger who shares DNA," I corrected. "And you're trespassing on private property. Officers, please escort them out." What followed was a scene that would be burned into Aspen's social memory forever. Patricia had to be physically removed while shouting about lawsuits and inheritance theft. Crystal tried to film it all for her Instagram, but her phone was confiscated as evidence when security found she'd been documenting her plans to expose me with illegally recorded conversations. Derek took a swing at a security guard and found himself in handcuffs, adding assault to his growing list of charges. The piece de resistance was when they were marched through the main lobby in full view of the Christmas brunch crowd. The same people they'd tried to impress for 2 days watched in horrified fascination as the family was escorted out like common criminals. Someone definitely got it on video, and by evening it would be all over social media. My father was the last to leave, walking with the slow shuffle of a broken man. He stopped in front of me, and for a moment I saw something in his eyes that might have been genuine regret. "I'm still your father," he said quietly. "No," I replied, my voice steady despite the pain in my chest. You were my father. Past tense. You gave up that title every time you chose them over me. Every time you stayed silent when they hurt me. Every time you let Patricia erase me from your life. Fathers protect their children, William. You fed yours to the wolves. Barbara, please. The saddest part? I continued. If you had stood up for me just once in 20 years, things might have been different. If you had insisted I be included, if you had defended me, if you had acted like a father, Grandma Rose might have seen a family worth saving. Instead, she saw a man too weak to protect his own daughter, and she decided I needed protecting from you. He flinched at each word, the truth cutting deeper than any anger could have. What am I supposed to do now? That's not my problem anymore, I said. But here's some free advice. Start by being honest. Your wife is broke, your stepchildren are grifters, and you're about to lose everything because you backed the wrong horse. Maybe rock bottom will teach you what 20 years of comfort couldn't. As security led him away, I heard him say something that stopped me cold. Your mother would be ashamed of you. I turned, my composure finally cracking. My mother? The woman whose funeral Patricia tried to plan after knowing her for 6 months? The woman whose pictures Patricia packed away because they didn't match her decor? The woman whose daughter you let be erased from your new perfect family? My mother would be ashamed, all right, of the man who forgot his promises to her the moment someone younger and flashier came along. That was the final blow. He crumpled, aging a decade in seconds, and shuffled out without another word. By 2 p.m., they were gone. Their luggage had been packed by staff and loaded into their vehicles. The bill, a staggering $73,000 including damages, had been charged to Patricia's credit card, which miraculously went through, though I suspected it was her last functioning one. The police had Derek in custody for assault and attempted theft. Crystal was having a public meltdown in the parking lot as her follower count dropped below 1 million. And Patricia sat in her Range Rover, staring at the resort with undisguised hatred. I watched from the penthouse as they drove away, their luxury vehicles looking suddenly shabby against the backdrop of real wealth. Within hours, the gossip would spread through Aspen's elite like wildfire. By New Year's, they would be social pariahs, their carefully cultivated image destroyed beyond repair. That evening, I sat down to Christmas dinner with the resort staff, the people who'd shown me more kindness and respect in 6 months than my family had in 20 years. We toasted Grandma Rose and shared stories of her secret visits over the years, how she'd known everyone's names and their children's birthdays, how she'd funded college scholarships and medical bills anonymously. She would have been proud of you today, Robert said, raising his champagne. Not for the confrontation, but for finally standing up for yourself. As we celebrated, my phone buzzed with messages from cousins I'd lost touch with, other family members who'd also been deemed not good enough by Patricia's standards. 3 of them had similar stories of exclusion and casual cruelty. We made plans to meet in the new year, to build the family Grandma Rose had always wanted us to have. Later that night, alone in the penthouse, I finally allowed myself to feel the weight of the day. I'd lost a father I'd never really had, cut ties with people who'd never seen me as family, and burned bridges that had only ever led one way. But I'd also freed myself from 20 years of seeking approval from people incapable of giving it. I opened Grandma Rose's final letter, the one marked open after they show their true colors. My dearest Barbara, it read, if you're reading this, then you've finally seen them for what they are. I know it hurts. I know you wanted them to choose you just once. But some people are incapable of seeing worth that isn't measured in dollars. You were always the richest one in that family, my dear. Rich in kindness, compassion, and strength. The money I've left you is just a tool. Use it to build the life you deserve, surrounded by people who see your true value. And remember, the best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you. It's building something so beautiful they realize what they lost. All my love, Grandma Rose. I folded the letter carefully, tears streaming down my face. Tomorrow, I would start building that beautiful life. But tonight, I allowed myself to grieve the family I'd never had while celebrating the freedom to find the family I deserved. 6 months later, I stood on the same penthouse balcony, watching the summer sun set over the Rockies. The Aurora Resort was fully booked, as it had been every day since Christmas. The story of the family confrontation had become legend in hospitality circles, but more importantly, it had attracted a new kind of clientele, people who valued authenticity over artifice, who understood that real class couldn't be bought or faked. I'd kept my teaching job, much to everyone's surprise. 3 days a week, I still stood in front of my fourth graders, teaching them about math and science and kindness. The other days, I learned the hotel business from the ground up, starting with housekeeping and working through every department. The staff respected me more for it, knowing I understood their challenges firsthand. The family aftermath had been swift and brutal. Patricia's house was foreclosed on in March. She'd moved into a small apartment in Denver, the kind she used to mock when dropping me off after family dinners. Crystal's influencer career had imploded completely. Last I heard, she was working at a department store makeup counter, serving women who used to follow her online. The irony was delicious, but I took no pleasure in it. Living well was revenge enough. Derek had spent 30 days in jail for assault and attempted theft. His business ventures, already on shaky ground, collapsed when his investors learned about his arrest. He'd reached out through a lawyer, trying to negotiate a loan, but I declined. Some bridges, once burned, provided better service as ashes. My father had surprised me, though. After losing everything in the divorce Patricia filed the moment their money ran out, he'd finally hit rock bottom. He'd started therapy, gotten a job at a hardware store, and slowly began rebuilding his life. He'd sent letters, real handwritten letters, not asking for money or favors, just sharing his journey of understanding how he'd failed as a father. I wasn't ready to forgive, not yet, but I'd stopped throwing the letters away unopened. The cousins I'd reconnected with had become my true family. We met monthly, sharing meals and stories, building the bonds Patricia had tried to prevent. One cousin, Maria, had even joined the company, bringing her expertise in sustainable hospitality to help modernize our properties. We were planning a massive family reunion at the resort for Christmas, one where everyone was welcome, where no one would be excluded for their job or their car or their clothes. I'd also established the Rose Foundation, funding scholarships for hospitality students and providing emergency grants for hotel workers facing hardship. The first recipient was a young woman whose story echoed mine, working 2 jobs to pay for hotel management school while supporting younger siblings. Watching her graduate debt-free, knowing she wouldn't have to choose between family and dreams, healed something in me I hadn't known was broken. The resort had also become home to a special Christmas tradition. Every December, we hosted 50 families from local shelters and low-income housing for a week-long winter wonderland experience. Everything was free, from ski lessons to gourmet meals, from spa treatments for the parents to presents for every child. Watching their faces light up in the same lobby where my family had tried to humiliate me brought the kind of joy money could facilitate but never buy. Miss Barbara. James appeared on the balcony, iPad in hand as always. The Times article just went live. You're trending #1 on their business section. The article, The Teacher Who Inherited an Empire, told the story of Grandma Rose's legacy and my unconventional approach to wealth. But more than that, it told the story of choosing kindness over bitterness, of building rather than destroying, of using privilege to lift others rather than step on them. As I read through the article, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it until I saw the preview. This is Crystal. I know I have no right to contact you. Curiosity won, and I opened the full message. This is Crystal. I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. Not because you have money, but because I finally understand what we lost. I saw the article about the Christmas families. That could have been us, our real family doing real good. Instead, we chose cruelty and paid for it. I don't want anything. I just wanted you to know that losing everything taught me what actually matters. I hope you found the family you deserved. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Thank you for the apology. I hope you find your way to something real. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was acknowledgement that people could change, even if it took losing everything to find themselves. That evening, we held our monthly staff meeting in the same conference room where I'd confronted my family 6 months ago. But now it was filled with laughter and planning, with ideas for new initiatives and celebrations of success. These people, who'd welcomed me without question, who'd supported me through the transition, they were my chosen family. Before we wrap up, Robert said, I want to share something. Ms. Rose's grandmother once told me that money was like fire. It could burn everything down or provide warmth to everyone around you. The choice was in how you wielded it. I think we can all agree that Barbara has chosen warmth. The applause was genuine, but I waved it off. Grandma Rose chose warmth. I'm just following her example. And speaking of which, I have an announcement. This year's Christmas gala will be different. Instead of charging $25,000 per couple, we're making it free to all resort employees and their families. You've earned a seat at the table. The cheer that went up could probably be heard in Denver. As the meeting broke up and people excitedly discussed their Christmas plans, I thought about how different this room felt now. Same walls, same view, but filled with genuine joy instead of desperate manipulation. Later that night, I sat in my apartment. Yes, I'd kept the small apartment in Denver, using the penthouse only for special occasions, and pulled out a photo album Grandma Rose had left me. Pictures of her empire-building days, of hotels rising from empty lots, of ribbon cuttings and grand openings. But scattered throughout were pictures of the people she'd helped along the way, the scholarship recipients, the promoted employees, the families given second chances. On the last page was a photo I'd never seen before, Grandma Rose and my mother, taken just weeks before Mom died. They were laughing at something off camera, their faces bright with joy. Underneath, in Grandma Rose's careful script, she would be so proud of who you've become. And for the first time since that Christmas revelation, I truly believed it. I'd lost the family I was born into, but found the family I was meant to have. I discovered that worth couldn't be measured in dollars or followers or designer clothes, but in the lives you touched and the kindness you spread. The teacher who'd been banned from the family Christmas had become the owner who made everyone feel like family. And that transformation was worth more than all the resorts and bank accounts combined. As I prepared for bed, my phone lit up with one final message, this time from my father. I saw the article. Your mother would be proud. I'm proud too, even though I have no right to be. Thank you for showing me who I should have been all along. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. Healing, like trust, took time. But at least now, time was something I had plenty of, along with the freedom to choose who deserved it. The next morning, I would wake up, teach my students about fractions and kindness, then fly to Montana to check on another property where we were implementing our employee-first policies. The morning after that, I'd review scholarship applications and plan the Christmas celebration that would include everyone. Because that's what Grandma Rose had really taught me, wealth wasn't about having more than others. It was about having enough to share. And a table with empty chairs, no matter how expensive the chairs, was the poorest table of all. My family had banned me from their luxury Christmas, thinking they were excluding me from something special. Instead, they'd freed me to create something extraordinary, a life where everyone had a seat at the table, where worth was measured in kindness, not cash, where family was chosen by love, not blood. And that was the most luxurious gift of all. What a journey this has been. Sometimes the most painful rejections lead us to our greatest revelations. I'm curious, have you ever experienced a moment when being excluded actually freed you to find something better? Drop a comment below and share your story. I read every single one and find strength in our shared experiences. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It really helps other people who might need to hear this message find it. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss next week's story about a woman who discovered her husband's secret family at her own anniversary party. Until then, remember that sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is the freedom to stop seeking approval from those who were never going to give it. Thank you for spending part of your Christmas with me, and may your holidays be filled with chosen family who see your true worth. Share this story with someone who needs to remember their value isn't determined by others' acceptance. Merry Christmas, everyone.